Hey guys, so today we're checking out the Barricade Trail Runner rear bumper with the LED trail lights fitting all 2018 and newer JL Wranglers. Now this rear bumper will be incredibly useful for off-road adventures by adding utility and protection to the rear end of the Jeep while helping you out with rear end visibility if you need work lighting or help backing up at night. Not to mention the hybrid steel tube and plate construction will also add a lot of styling that stands out compared to other traditional heavy-duty rear bumpers if you're looking for something unique. This will feature 2 recovery points, providing 2 welded D-ring mounts, 1 on either side, which will come in handy in any sticky situations if you're taking your JL off-road, being rated for up to 9,500 pounds. Now again, this will also include 2 3-inch LED cube lights that will offer a lot of lighting out of the rear end, and you can tie them into the plug-and-play switch that will mount up to the back of the lights and route all the way to the front of the Jeep, making sure that you don't have to do any additional wiring. Additionally, if you have factory backup sensors, this will be compatible, so you don't have to sacrifice those factory features. This will also come with a license plate mount and the lights included, being a fully inclusive kit. This bumper will be made of a steel tube and plate construction, being durable enough to take a hit off-road. Now on top of that, there's going to be a nice textured black powder coat finish to protect the steel underneath and provide a pretty heavy-duty look. Now this will have the integrated fog lighting, and those are going to be tough as well with an aluminum body, a polycarbonate lens, and they're going to be IP67 water and dust proof rated. This will also have a cutout down at the bottom to allow you to keep your factory hitch or add one in the future. This rear bumper will come in at roughly $600, which is pretty average for a heavy-duty rear bumper, especially with all of the features that are included with this one. Now compared to other choices, this will have the hybrid tube and plate construction. It's going to have the lighting and the ability to reuse the factory backup sensors. Now, you will usually see one or the other when it comes to the build, either a full steel plate construction or just full tubing, and a lot of those are not going to have additional lighting, especially at this price point. Now then you do have the more expensive choices that will a lot of the time come with a tire carrier. However, if you don't need the additional carrier and you want a functional rear bumper that's going to provide the protection, utility, and style that you need for your JL, then this is a great pick. Now install will be a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about 2 hours to get the job done with some basic hand tools. Now at this point we can head over to the shop and check out a detailed breakdown of the install and what that looks like step by step. So that's going to wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead and get into it.
The tools you're going to need for this installation include 1/2-inch impact gun, a ratchet, electric or regular, 8, 10, 16, 18, 19, and 21 millimeter sockets, a 4mm and 5mm hex head sockets, T40 Torx socket, a 10mm wrench, a trim removal tool, a pop clip removal tool, diagonal cutters, wire strippers, and T-taps and spades. How's it going, everyone? Today we have a rear bumper we're going to install on our JL Wrangler. Now we did previously get the uninstall footage. It is on a different Jeep Wrangler, but it is a JL 4-door model, so the process will be exactly the same. Once we show you that, I'll be back to walk you through the install step by step.
So the first thing we're going to start on the end. We have these little plastic splash guards we need to take off. There's going to be 3 screws total. I'm going to do this outer one first, and you'll need an 8mm socket to get that screw out. So then you're going to have 2 on the inside right here. Same thing, 8mm socket. We'll pull those out and we can get this cover off. So next we're going to take off this bracket that was underneath of that plastic section. You're going to have 4 bolts total. You're going to have 2 going into the bumper right here, and you're going to have 2 on the other end that go into the frame. We're going to start with these 2 right here. You're going to use a 16mm socket to get those out. So we're going to go on the other side and get these bolts out of the frame section. Once you get that last bolt ready to come out, you want to put a hand on this bracket because it's ready to come off. So then we're going to hop on over to the other side and do that same exact thing. So we're gonna stay on that same side. Next we have to get our tow hook off. So we have 2 bolts on the side and we have 1 bolt down here. This bottom one's gonna be a 21 millimeter. Then these 2 side ones, we're gonna use a 19 millimeter socket. I'm gonna start with this bottom one first and get that out. And while we're over here, we're gonna unplug our license plate light as well. So that's gonna be this little plug right here. You can pull that off of here. And on this front side, we're gonna have this little tab that we need to press in. So you have this gray locking tab we'll need to press up. Once you get that up, you're gonna press down on that gray tab once it's out and up, and that's gonna allow us to unplug that. So we're gonna go over to the other side. Now as you see, we don't have a tow hook here, so we don't need to take out this bottom bolt. However, we do need to take out these 2 side bolts, so we're gonna use that same 19 millimeter to get those out. So then we're gonna move to the middle, right in the middle in front of the muffler right here on this frame section. You're gonna have these 2 bolts. We need to get those out as well. These are gonna be 19s, just like the side of those tow hooks. So we're gonna go ahead and thread these out. So now that we have all of that hardware removed, we can go ahead and get our bumper off. It's relatively light, it's just made of plastic, so you can probably do it yourself. I am gonna open the tailgate just to give me a little more room and get our spare tire away from our bumper.
With the factory bumper removed, we're actually gonna start right here on our workbench because there is one thing we have to take off of here in order to transfer it over to our new bumper, and that is the tag light harness here. So we're gonna use our trim removal tool and remove the several Christmas tree clips that are here and get this out, and then we can hook it onto our new bumper. All right, so keep this safe because we're gonna reuse it. Now we can get our bumper off the table and get our aftermarket bumper up here for the preparation. Now we have our aftermarket bumper up on our workbench, and we're gonna start by filling in the holes for our reverse sensors. Now, if you have reverse sensors in your bumper, at this point you'd wanna take those out to transfer them over along with the wiring harnesses associated with them, but ours did not have those. So instead, we're gonna take from the kit these plugs just to fill in the holes, just to make it look aesthetically pleasing. So if you don't have the sensors either, then this is what you'll be doing. We're just gonna do that for all 4 of the holes here for the reverse sensors. All right, now we can move on to installing the lights that come with this kit. All right, to install our lights here, we're gonna need the hardware that comes included with it. And what we're gonna do is put our light in from the front here. Then we're gonna put bolt through each hole. And then on the back, we're gonna put our locking washers on and then tighten down with our nut. And we need 5 millimeter hex head socket for the bolts and a 10 millimeter wrench for the nut. So I'm putting the locking washer and nut on at the same time. Right, now that we have them on all hand tight, go ahead and grab our 10mm wrench and our 5mm hex head socket to tighten them the rest of the way down. All right, that's the install process for this light, and for the other side, we're gonna repeat the same steps. All right, at this point, we're gonna go ahead and mount up our license plate bracket here. So the hardware that comes included with the kit, we're gonna need 2 of these button head bolts, along with 2 flat washers and 2 of the nuts. And we also need our 4mm hex head socket and our 10mm wrench. So we're gonna put our bracket up on top, put our bolts through, actually with the flat washer on the bolt. So put those 2 through and then put the nut on the bottom. So now I'm just threading the nut onto the bottom of the bolt here. I'm gonna put it hand tight so I can get the other one through, and then we'll go ahead and tighten it down the rest of the way. All right, next we're gonna be installing the tag lights, and we're gonna need our factory harness for that so that we can splice into it. All right, now we're gonna continue on by installing our lights here. So the first thing we have to do is take the hardware all the way off of the wires here so that we can route it all through the holes up at the top of our bracket. And then once they're through, we're gonna put our hardware back on and tighten it down. When we go back together, we're gonna put the flat washer on first and then the nut. All right, now before we tighten these the rest of the way down with our 10mm wrench, we're just gonna eyeball the lights at the bottom here. Just make sure they're kind of pointed towards the middle here, because these will be the lights for our license plate. All right, next we're gonna come to the back side here, and I'll show you how to wire these up to the factory harness that operates the factory tag lights. All right, to wire these up, the first thing we're gonna do is just separate both the light wires. So both lights wire, we're just gonna pull them apart a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually splice these together so that we just have essentially one positive and one negative. So we're gonna strip the ends of the wires and twist them together. All right, now let's do the same thing for the ground wires. All right, now the way we are tapping into our factory harness here is we're gonna be using T-taps and spades. So we're gonna crimp our spades onto these ends and then tap into these wires. Now you can wire them up any way you'd like. You can tap straight in or splice straight in and solder, but this is the way we're gonna go. So you might wanna get yourself a set of these, because it is a pretty simple way to do it. Now, do have to call out that both of our wires here are the same color. We have white with blue stripe. All right, so we're gonna crimp on our T-taps to one to each wire, one going to the positive, one going to the negative. Now, if you take a look at our wires, they both are the same white with blue stripes. I took the liberty of testing them myself, and from looking at them from this angle with the connector clip here at the top, the right one is positive and the left one is negative. Now, if yours look this way, like ours do, you know, they're both white with blue stripes, that could be the case. It might be a good idea for you to test them yourself. Or you could have wires where one is black and 99% of the time, that is the ground. All right, so I'm gonna put my T-taps on here and just gonna put them into, if you're using T-taps, just put them right into that slot there. and then flip the other side over. And to lock that in place, we're going to use our needle nose pliers. So you don't really get an audible click from that, but you can kind of feel it lock into place. So we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Just going to peel this back just a little bit so I can offset the connectors, the T-taps. Here we go, got a little click from that one. All right, next let's put our spades onto our wires and crimp these down. So my wire's poking through there, so what you want to do if that happens is just pull it back a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hit this one twice from the get-go. Okay, just give it a little tug test. All right, good to go. Now, once we get this up on the vehicle, we're going to hook this together and plug this into our factory harness. Now that we're done with the preparation work on the bumper, we can now get ready to install it onto our Jeep. First thing we have to do is put this bracket in the frame right here with the nuts on the bottom side of it. So just simply slide this in and then make sure that the welded nuts line up with the holes on the bottom of the frame. We're ready to mount the bumper up now. So you want to grab the bolts out of the kit that we have, and you want 8 of these, each with a locking washer and a flat washer. And this bumper is pretty heavy, so you want to grab a friend so that he can help you lift it up and line up the holes, and then start putting in the bolts by hand. Good. All right, thank you, Mark. Now we'll put the other 4 bolts in, and we're gonna get up in the air to give you a better look, and we'll tighten them down with our 21mm socket. All right, so we're underneath of our bumper here on the driver's side of our Jeep, and I just wanted to point out these are the 2 bolts that we put in by hand, and we did that on either side. So right now we have 4 bolts in holding this up, and we're gonna put the other 4 in on the bottom of our bumper. All right, now we're on the passenger side. And again, just pointing out the other 2 bolts here that Mark and I put in. And I'm gonna put the last 2 bolts in and then tighten them all down with my 21mm socket. So these 2 bolts here are the ones that are going into those welded nuts that we, on the bracket that we put in. So just make sure that's lined up and they should go in pretty smoothly. Now I'm kind of pre-lining this up too, so I'm just putting some pressure up and then towards the front of the Jeep just to keep it high and tight. All right, now while we're here, we're gonna go ahead and connect our tag lights. So grab the factory harness that we removed earlier. And what I'm gonna do is plug it up here. It goes in one way, so once you get that click, you know it's good. Now I'm gonna just wind everything up and zip tie it together, and then I'll plug in my T-taps to the spades. All right, now if you recall, on our wiring harness, yours might be different, but in ours, this, looking at the plug this direction, the right one is the positive. All right, so let's tuck this away for now, and we can move on to our main harness for our reverse lights. we're ready to start connecting and routing our main wiring harness for our rear lights here. So as you can see, we have a whole bunch of wire. It comes in a nice bundle when you get it, but I have unwrapped it just to make it a little bit easier to route it down the frame. So what we're gonna do is get these two connectors, plug them into both of our lights, and then we're gonna start routing it up over this frame, down along the driver's side frame rail until we reach the engine bay. So to make this a little bit easier, instead of feeding all the wire up over the frame here, I'm gonna connect them behind the frame to begin. Then I'm gonna grab the end of the wire, which actually has the relay and connector on it. I'm gonna start routing this back, or well, forward towards the engine bay. So one thing I do wanna mention is just be mindful of everything up here that's hot, sharp, could be moving, and make sure that when you're done routing it, that it's up and out of the way of, say, like this exhaust here, which I'll do, before we wrap this up. All right, so I'm actually gonna take it behind the frame bolts here. So instead of pulling it through there, you could leave it behind. Again, completely up to you. All right, and I'm just gonna continue along the top, like so. All right, so I found another spot where you can zip tie. So I'm just gonna take my wires here and pull them tight, put a zip tie through the body here, and then fasten them up against the body. All right, and now we're at the front of the frame. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and route them up through the fender well and then up into the engine bay. Now, once you reach the front of your frame rail, you'll come to the fender here and you'll probably have a fender liner. Ours is already removed. So what you're gonna have to do is just kind of maybe take out a couple push clips here, just so you can lift up the fender liner a little bit, and then you'll be able to access the engine bay directly from there. So that's what we're gonna do now, is just run all the wire up into the engine bay, and then we'll grab it from the top. When you do get back here, just make sure you're routing it, on the proper side of all these lines and everything that's in here. All right, that should be good for now. So what we're gonna do is drop the Jeep down, pop open the hood, and grab the rest from the top. All right, again, just be mindful of all the lines and hoses as you're pulling this up through the engine bay. There's a bunch of stuff to get caught on. There we go. All right. Now that I got it free, I'm actually gonna go under this coolant hose as well. And I'm gonna start routing this along the top of the engine bay here, and then over to the battery. All right, we're gonna have to unravel our spaghetti here a bit, but while I'm here, it does look like there's a couple more places to zip tie, one being on that bracket. Let me see if that's good. So we can zip tie to this bracket right here, and then also on that plastic trim piece over there. So I'm gonna grab a couple zip ties, do that, and then we'll connect to the battery. All right, now that we've reached the battery, we're gonna go ahead and connect our wires, our red to positive, black to negative, starting with the positive. So if we pull up the protective sleeve here, we reveal some terminals, and I'm gonna use this one right here since it's empty, and to get that nut off, I'm using my 12 millimeter socket. So go ahead and tighten that back down. And now we can connect our negative. And I'm going to use this terminal spot right here. And to remove that nut, I'm going to use my 10mm socket. All right, at this point, we could test the lights if you want to. It's not a bad idea to do that. Once that you know that your lights are good to go at this point, we can go ahead and route our wires back over to the driver's side so that we can route our switch through the firewall and mount that in the cabin. Now, as you're routing your wires back over towards the driver's side in order to get your switch through the firewall, it's a good idea to find a good spot to mount your relay and secure your fuse somewhere. Now, you can drill in somewhere around here. We're not going to do that for the purposes of this video, but what I'm going to do is just kind of lay it along here, along with the fuse, and zip tie it in place just to keep it temporarily secure. Now again, for you at home, probably want to find a more permanent solution. So if you have a self-tapping screw, that will work, and you could mount it here or even on the battery box. All right, now that we're back over to the driver's side of our Jeep, at this point you could go through the firewall as we spoke about before, but there is another way that's just as safe that we can do. So I'm actually going to show you that now. We're going to be routing this way, so it involves taking this panel off here, and that will give us access to the cabin. So to do this, you're going to need a pop removal tool such as this, and also your T40 socket. All right, so I'm actually going to start by removing my switch here. So this connector is just a push tab style to release. And once you separate it, take your switch and just put this somewhere safe for now. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the cabin. Now we can take our wire, and if you notice here on this foam trim piece here, there's a little slit in it where we can run the wire. So we're going to go through that first. And again, just kind of put this out of the way, somewhere safe for now. The next step we're going to do is remove this panel right here using our T40 socket. So there's 4 bolts holding this panel in place. There's 2 at the bottom and there's 2 at the top. These 2 at the top are longer, so just keep track of those. Make sure that they go back in their appropriate places. So as you can see, these are elongated compared to the other ones. All right, with all 4 bolts out, this now just slides directly out. All right, so we're going to be routing our wire up through here. And then when we open up the door, there is a plastic trim panel right here that we're going to remove. So I'm going to go inside the cabin to do that right now. All right, so from inside our Wrangler and with the door opened up in the door jamb here, this is the trim piece we're going to remove. So there's 2 Christmas tree clips that we have to take out using our pop clip removal tool. And then once they're out, we're just going to move this aside. We're not going to take it all the way out. We're going to move this aside so that we can route our wires through. All right, so there's just a little bit of foam backing that's kind of adhesive. So if you just pry on it a little bit, it keeps it intact. And like I said, we don't have to remove this. Just get it to the side like that. And then at this point, we're actually gonna take our switch end here and we're gonna route it back towards the engine bay. So you just have to kind of route it underneath of the windshield frame here. And this is nice because the wire is in between this rubber piece here and there's actually some more foam here, so it does keep it protected. All right, once you can kind of measure the length out here as well. So we're gonna be mounting our switch right here, right above our other light switch. You can mount it wherever you'd like, but once you have the location, you can go ahead and put this trim back. All right, now I'm gonna go back into behind the panel that we removed and just tie up all the extra slack and connect our wires together. All right, we're back to where we removed this panel. So at this point, we can connect the wires together. Like I said, just gather up all the slack, and I'm gonna leave it right here behind the panel. I think it's a good spot for it. Should keep it nice and safe. All right, now that our wires are secure, we can go ahead and put our panel back in place as well. All right, remember that the longer bolts go on top. And we're using our T40 socket to tighten these down. One note before I do tighten these down, this panel here is plastic again, so just don't go too tight. Just give it a nice snug once it is seated against the panel. All right, so once you found a good spot to mount your switch, just go ahead and flip it over and you'll see that it's double-sided tape on the back of it. So all we have to do is remove the protective backing and stick it in place. Just hold it there for like 10 to 15 seconds, make sure it sticks nicely, and you're good to go. All right, last couple things we have to do here. One being, we're gonna zip tie our tag light wires here to the frame, like so. So go ahead and grab a couple zip ties and your diagonal cutters. Try to keep this wire behind there. Good luck. All right, let's trim off the ends. And then also I wanted to point out, make sure you don't forget to put your license plate up. And the kit does come supplied with hardware so that you can mount your plate. And it's the same as the hardware for mounting the bracket. So 4mm hex, either an Allen key or your socket, and a 10mm wrench for the nut. And then lastly, we're gonna go ahead and mount up our D-rings on our bumper brackets. Okay, for our D-rings here, let's just take out the bolt. You can slide it over the bracket here. Put the bolt back through and screw it into place. All right, and we're gonna do the same thing for the other side.
So that is a wrap on my review and the install of the Barricade Trail Runner rear bumper with the LED trail lights, fitting all 2018 and newer JL Wranglers. For more videos and products just like this, remember to always keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.